Hi, welcome to Troubling Care, 4 Orientations for Wickedness in Design. I'm Karey Helms.
And I'm Ylva Fernaeus.
And together we'll be discussing a wickedness in the everyday caring for loved ones and offer 4 troubling orientations of care as resources for interaction designers.
This work foregrounds a shared concern into what care means as technology continues to enter our homes.
We draw upon scholarship that aims to make space for care as transformative and troubling, rather than a straight or gendered repetition of it as positive and fulfilling.
In this way, designing for care might be described as wicked, where a careful design for one setting might be a careless design in another.
So we ask, how can care be explored as not in line with normative expectations and directions, and what other orientations of domestic care might emerge?
To investigate this, we used interaction criticism to trouble 2 of our own past autobiographical projects. Karey, perhaps you would now like to describe your project.
Sure. So mine took place in early 2017, during which I placed sensors around my apartment to speculate about what my husband might be doing at home alone while I was at work. So for example, I put a light sensor on a lamp, and then through a custom chat application, I could request the sensor status. So for example, if the light was on, then he was probably awake and at home.
Why would you do this?
So, great question. We had recently moved from London to Stockholm for my PhD position at KTH, and he had left his job and was unemployed. And having been in his situation before, I knew the feelings of uncertainty, but also needing space to figure out my next steps on my own. So rather than risking sounding as nagging him to see how he was doing, I thought we could try to indirectly communicate about things and about his well-being instead.
Sounds a bit one-sided.
Yes, I thought so too. So with the light sensor, in response to this feeling, I then created a custom power switch in which whenever I would request the sensor status, it would cause the light to flicker. And in this way, it would reveal my checking on him and my caring for him.
So how did this end?
Really very undramatically. So in total, the project only lasted around 3 months. And in the final weeks, I really only used it a few times before stopping altogether. And I think this is because we both had started to fall into new and established routines, and I really didn't see the point of the project anymore. So Ylva, would you now like to describe your project?
Yes, this was a small hack I did a couple of years ago when my twins were toddlers, and I find it hard to sort of look after them both sometimes when I was home alone with them. So if I would, for instance, be with them in one room and one of them would run away, maybe into another room, I had this motion sensitive camera set up so that I could see where they were heading, and if they were heading somewhere unsafe, I would play a sound in the room I were so that they would hopefully be attracted right back.
Cool. What kind of sounds?
Playful sounds like sirens and animal noises and stuff like that.
And did it work out as intended?
Kind of worked. The idea, as I said, was like to lure them back rather than scolding them, and that kind of worked. The problems were, first of all, the sounds needed to play where I was. It sort of startled me and the kid next to me more than the kid running away. And also my partner thought it was crazy to have cameras like that at home. So I took it down after a couple of weeks. After reflecting on these projects and as a space-making exercise, we conceptualized how care was directed or sometimes even misdirected in our projects.
This took 2 forms, as collages presented above, and as single-word semantic directions, like detour and shortcut, to help us describe care as spatial and not straight.
In relation to each word, we reflected upon tensions we had felt or experienced.
This led us to 4 troubling orientations that guide a critique of our projects: willful detours, selfish shortcuts, naughty invasions, and unhappy departures. Willful detours highlight tensions in the effective side of care by violating notions of as well as possible through inefficient care.
These detours also go against feminized expectations of domestic labor as optimized.
While both projects in some ways were quick and dirty hacks, there was still time dedicated to the design of the projects to care across spatial boundaries. In this way, the sensors give access to caring detours by which we were both able to take inefficient routes in the caring for our loved ones.
Selfish shortcuts foreground ethical tensions between personal interests and our care for loved ones. They achieve self-care by piggybacking on systems intended to care for others.
For instance, in your project, there's a bit of a selfishness in trying to get some rest and not having to run after the kids. In my project, I preferred to speculate about my husband, which made me feel good, rather than verifying if he was actually okay or not.
There's a bit of contradictory relationship between the care for oneself and the care for others, which might include our roles also as researchers.
Naughty invasions bring attention to tensions in care labor through unwelcome exposures of care.
For instance, in your project, the light flicker could be seen as quite creepy. Like, here am I spying on you. And I also found it weirder than expected to look at my own kids from another room, and I started also to use it for other purposes.
There's a naughtiness in how we both played with surveillance technology and trying to make it flirty or silly, but both projects were also quite invasive in their deliberate and non-discrete nature.
Unhappy departures generate ethical concerns from remnants of care labor. They depart from histories of care in new, unexpected ways.
For example, in your project, Ylva, how you started to use your system to check on how pancake making was going in the kitchen. And in my project, how often I found myself explaining to others how much my husband did not mind me monitoring him.
Unhappy departures bring attention to the work in caring for, becoming the caring about something else.
As you can see, in each of the orientations, there is a wickedness in which our designs can be viewed as both a naughty troubling of norms, yet also potentially violent and engaging beyond simplifications of care as positive and fulfilling.
We think that staying with such tensions recognizes the opportunity for design to make mischief of complex dimensions rather than only attempting to address or solve problems.
To explore designing with a wickedness of care, we approached it as spatial by drawing upon the concept of orientations from queer phenomenology. Orientations are both directions that care takes towards objects in a style that affects how we inhabit space.
We see the orientations as four possible paths for interaction designers, either, as in our case, to support self-criticism, and also to trouble users and misuses beyond oneself and beyond one's own designs.
We refer to them as troubling rather than queer because not all challenge heteronormative constructs, and in some cases might even reinforce them. Our identities cannot be separated from our critique.
We would like to conclude with a reflection on doing autobiographical work with our families and a critique of ourselves that might challenge dominant ways of belonging as designers and researchers.
We often found ourselves reflecting on what it means to be good participants within designing for ourselves and our loved ones. We think new conceptual tools are needed to better support autobiographical projects in intimate settings, and believe the four orientations presented today may work as one such resource in mapping complex and often wicked design spaces.